This is The Immortal's Secret with Alex and Ezri.
Hi, everyone. It's Alex Edmonston. I'm here with Ezri Carlebach, my dear friend, today. And usually we talk about our wisdom about writing, about literary, about that whole genre. But today, something happened in late March. And so Ezri and I wanted to use our interview today just to talk about a dear friend whose name is Rob Briggs, Robert Gray Briggs. We were both quite shocked to find out that our dear friend passed away in late March, on March the 26th. And he was a communication colleague and just an all around, just amazing human. And we just wanted to talk about him a little bit today because he was just like us, me and you, Esri, where he was a writer. And an artist, but also an academic. He was so many things. And we just wanted to share a few of our thoughts on him to just memorialize him in our own way, Esri. Did you want to
Absolutely. I
jump in?
I think, I was really shocked at the loss of Rob in such a cruel and unexpected way. I've known him since 2002, and he's been a constant, if not frequent, presence in my life. But, he was somebody I knew professionally and personally, and somebody who was, always, he's just somebody who turned up. Woody Allen said 80% of success is turning up. And Rob turned up not just at work, but for people, for his friends. We shared a lot of interests beyond the professional life as well, as you say, in writing, but in writing fiction. We talked a lot about communication. He was a member of my ABC, as we were, and that's how I really got to know him. But we also shared an interest in creative writing, and particularly in science fiction and fantasy, and related areas. So yeah, it was. He's somebody who I just never expected to have to say, I went to his funeral. I just never expected to have to say that.
He was only 55, and it just came as such a huge shock. But one of the things I would say about Rob is he was a true original. When I first met him, I was just always so amazed at how much he loved kind of putting the science into corporate communications. He was someone who had a master's, and I think he had gone to school in Manchester. So at the time when I met him, when he was still in his 30s, he had a master's and in comms, and he just loved to talk about corporate communications. I love that. And I felt like because both of you were in London, I only ever get to see both of you. I only ever got to see both of you when we were traveling, when we go to IBC conferences or Leadership Institute or what have you. So I always had the pleasure of meeting Rob. I remember once he was in we were in San Diego. We had a leadership conference, IABC leadership conference, and he flew into LA and he rented a convertible. The convertible. It wasn't a Ferrari or anything. I think it might have been a Corvette. So this is how Rob showed up, right? He showed up in life, right? Like larger, like
Mm,
lots of class. And he showed up in this Corvette. And again, it was just one of those leadership institutes where you got to catch up. But again, just looking at the really analyzing corporate communications, right?
mm,
We do. I've always found that fascinating because we do it every day and you just do it, right? But then Rob would sit down and want to analyze it and see, is this the right thing to do? What does the literature show? What are people
yeah,
studying? He contributed to a lot of the IEBC literature, through the Research
mm,
Institute as well, where they would put together compile all the, like the communication guides, right? And
yeah.
but yeah, and as you would too, Esri, because I know that you contributed to a lot of that as well.
Well, I loved being in IABC. It was IABC. It was always a great experience.
Yeah.
And you know, with Rob in particular, there was one story that he loved to tell, until I quietly asked him to stop telling it, because when I was first involved at the European region level, in the good old days, we had a small fund which we used to encourage an up and coming member to go to some international event, to help them with airfares and so on.
Yeah.
And this was at the time when Rob had just got involved in IABC. And I remember suggesting Rob, and the board agreed. And so basically just paid his flight to Paris for a leadership institute.
Yeah.
But I was a bit anxious about asking him because, it was like very small amount of money, really. And
Yeah.
I didn't know what he would think about it. But when I actually had the conversation with him, he was blown away. He thought, wow, nobody's ever offered me money to go to a conference, to learn and develop and grow as a professional before. So yeah, he used to frequently, whenever we met at IBC events, he'd say, here's Ezri. This is the guy who sent me to Paris.
It's so funny. It was
And
like you said, it wasn't
yeah,
that much money. It was like blown away. But I
yeah,
think,
and
but I, oh, sorry, Ezra, I didn't mean to cut you off.
that's right. No, I was just going to say that, we both recognised the humour in me eventually saying, Rob, I think everybody's heard that story now.
You were famous for doing that. Yeah, I think he just had this beautiful human side, because he came off wanting to, he was very professional, right? But very warm
Mm.
and very educated, right? Like it was intimidatingly educated, right? And but yet he had this
Three
beautiful,
master's
yeah,
degrees. He
I
had
know,
three
like
master's degrees.
I
Yeah.
know, crazy. It's just like blows your mind. He was so educated, but I felt like I was, even though I'm living here in Toronto and I don't never saw him as I don't see you all the time, but thank God we can
Mm.
do the things that we do together. And but one of the things I felt was I was always part of these incredible moments in his life because in IABC New York, which I think was 2009. I can't remember. Um, Rob and Leslie got engaged. And so we had my
Mm.
husband and I, we had dinner, my husband Rob, another Rob. We had dinner with them. And then we went to London and they said a few years later, and then they said, you're gonna, because I always said I couldn't get my husband to come to Scotland with me because we've gone a lot, right? It's kind of like he won't, he's kind of getting sick of going to Paris, if you can believe. She said, I can't even imagine someone gets sick of Paris. But so they said, we're going to get you to Scotland, Alex, because we're getting married in 2011. So we went for their wedding in Edinburgh in 2011. And then we went for the Scottish vote. And so we were there for the Scottish independence vote in Edinburgh with Robin Leslie. And the last time I saw him, Ezri, is we just got together to go to this wine bar in London. I was in London. And I remember him taking me, he told me he was writing, and I was so excited for him. And he took me down this street, and I think that you would know it, and I've just forgotten the name, but it was all books. It was all books. And we just walked down this street, and it was just bookstores. It was, how
Yeah,
when
probably.
you have like Fleet Street and like the street,
Yeah,
street.
Charing Cross Road is
Yeah,
famous for bookstores. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we went down there together, and he was explaining it to me, and it was a moment, and when you think about the last time you saw someone, I think it's almost like, in a way, a literary thing that he and I were walking
Mm.
down this street with just books.
Mm.
And I'll just never forget that moment because I didn't realize that was going to be the last time because he was supposed to be in
Sure.
Toronto in a few weeks because he was the vice chair of the World Conference that's being held in Toronto in mid-June. So, and we had arranged to have dinner together.
Mm.
And yeah, so that's kind of my last moment, which I don't want to really call it my last moment, but it would, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you want to believe that you'll meet again, right? But yeah, what about you, Ezri?
Well,
Like memories and the last time that you chatted or
I saw him in May last year, May 2025, almost exactly a year ago. and went to Edinburgh and visited the amazing art gallery that Leslie was running, and which
Mhm.
Rob had put a great deal of effort into helping her get it going and
Yeah.
seeing it flourish. And it was wonderful to um, see Leslie in that environment, in enjoying doing what she was really passionate about, and meeting some of the artists. Well, one of the artists who popped in while we were there.
Yeah.
And again, absolutely no thought whatsoever that I wouldn't see him again very soon. It was just, yeah, it was really quite shocking. And my kind of really standout memory right now is from November 2019, because that's when I discovered that Anglia Ruskin University in the UK was offering a master's degree in science fiction studies. And I looked at the course and I thought, this looks great. And I sent the link to Rob and I said, what do you think? He said, I'm in. So we both signed up. We both signed up to do this course. Now, the bulk of it, even at that point, was going to be delivered remotely. So, we wouldn't have to. Anglia Ruskin University is actually in Cambridge.
Yeah.
It's alongside the very famous Cambridge University.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, of course, the course was meant to start in March 2020. And that's exactly when the COVID pandemic hit. But even though it was meant to be delivered online, sadly, they called off the course altogether. And, we were left kind of wondering what the hell to do. But in typical fashion, nil desperandum, as Rob would have said, he started working on a novel. And he actually sent me chapter one of this novel to have a look at. And I reread it again recently and just feel so sad that I'll never be able to read the whole thing, never see him signing it in a bookshop and so on. And it's powerful because it's a loss. It feels tragic, but at the same time, I have something that is you know totally Rob.
Yeah.
The language you immediately, if you know Rob, you know it's him.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's something also to treasure.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you do have this something unique from him. Did you want to maybe read a little bit from it, Ezri? Share it with.
I'd love to. I would like to read a short extract, and it's the novel was called The Barrel. And at the time, Rob was really into a folk singer from New Zealand called Aldous Harding. If you don't know her, look her up on YouTube. She is amazing. And the novel opens with a quote from one of her song lyrics. But the premise is that it's set in the near future. Climate change has devastated the earth, and a lot, if not all, agricultural production has moved off planet to orbiting facilities where people live and work to produce food to send it back to Earth. But of course, living in under those conditions introduces its own stresses and strains. And the novel centers around the narrator, who's a detective with some serious issues of his own, investigating a series of crimes on this rotating orbital place. So this is from The Barrel by Rob Briggs. Step outside and the dry heat burns your throat. Black wisps of ash flicker and faint on the wind. The earth's been burning for 30 years. Nothing grows. Every tree in sight is a warm charcoal stump. I pace, I pace across the scalded ground to the transport pod. The journey to Calhab Standard Station is a swift and surprisingly pleasant one. I make small talk with two teenage transporter companions while my mechanoid parrot, Mr. Fibuli, harasses their elderly robo spaniel. In about an hour, the burnt earth becomes ruddy, the dirty soil intercut with red veins. The changed fields are marked where lush grasses and luxuriant vegetation used to grow. Odd brick and concrete fingers now stud the landscape. Erast, the younger companion, stares eagerly out of the window, crying with delight as he recognizes familiar features. I've only been to Cal since I left the barrel, he says. Nothing like I imagined, but look, Church of New Saints, that rubble there, Frank's ultralight store next door. They're legends that I only read about. This I get, the Hab I don't. That's fair. Caledonia Habitat stands 10 kilometers cubed, all capsule apartments, pristine tenements, and dubious trade markets. Two twin-walled shields keep the worst of the heat waste at bay. Every inch is precious, so they built up, down, and around. Kind of difficult to get your head around the uneven geometry, especially after you find Marky's bar. As Mr. Fibuli pecks lazily at Erast's mutt, the younger companion spies the badge on my arm. You're a seneschal. I nod. Fibuli squawks. I threw myself out a transport pod yesterday, seneschal. Broke my arm. Wasn't a good day. I take the bait. Why? Had to run the ruins, real life ruins. You get nothing off Earth, no reality. It's clinical, even the agri levels with their harvesters and fake fields. I'm wreck born and wreck bred. My first cadet clash is in a week, and I ain't hard enough yet. Erast told me about Cal and the Highlands, the ruins, the black. You want to get rich, you got to run the ruins. If you wait, you get late registration. Late registration, no graduation. And you jumped to run? He half nods. I jumped and rolled just how Erast showed me. Hit something hard and my arm cracked, see? He rolls up a loose-fitting sleeve to share the sympathy cast beneath. Jumping from a transport can get you killed. Why tell me? I could take you in. You won't. You've been there. I see the marks. 1, 2, left wrist. Your wreck level. Was, I emphasize. So, seneschal or not, you put your level first. Besides, you look like you slept on the floor and your shirt honks. Thanks for the praise, kid. De nada. Erast takes another longer look at me, all earlier thrill dissipating. Why are you travelling common pod? All martial class go up front. Let's just say I like the look of you and your friend. You seem interesting. I'm interested in interesting, and I bet you know some interesting kicks. Hey, says the younger one, not cool. Serious? Erast stares a moment, then turns. John T? Not cool, he repeats. Look, some wreck levelers do it, not me, too pricey. Do what? I probe. It's called Trembly, not cool. Erast shrinks a little more into his hood. I ask John T a few follow-ups, at least as many as I can, without last night's migraine flying the back of my eyeballs. Over the darkened fields and the low curve of a white ash wood rises a silver spar. John T fidgets and sighs sullenly, his eyes fixed on it. Disappointment, then relief, crosses his angular face. As I look at him, I can see pride, regret, and sensitivity in his large auburn eyes.
Wow. Oh my God.
Don't
He's
you want to
creating,
read the rest of that?
that is amazing. He's like creating his own world. Oh my God.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
and
the plot is so fascinating.
and he has the ability to bring it to life, to make you feel like you're there in
Oh,
quite sparse text. You know, it's not
I know,
not a
yeah.
lot of detailed description, or but you're there, you're right there with the
Oh
characters
my God,
and the
I
story,
know.
and
It's like
I
they
loved
say,
it.
show me, don't tell me, right? And he's
Yeah,
definitely showing you.
yeah.
Wow. I always think it's so fascinating. Like, what an imagination. We didn't know in a million years thought, oh, I'll create my own world.
Mm,
I'll create my own world because the earth has, climate change has destroyed the world. That is so Rob. It's so
mm.
Rob in a way, but then it's kind of not because I never had a conversation with him about climate change.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the creative aspects of it, whatever
Yeah,
he was writing about.
yeah,
And I'm sure he wrote other things. I know that he got involved with a sort of crime and mystery writers group,
yeah, yeah. Oh, okay.
and he contributed something to a session that that group did. So I think he was able to work within different genres, but to build on the sort of tropes that were instantly recognizable.
Yeah.
but to make it compelling.
Yeah.
And that's, he did work at it, and there's no question he worked at it, but there was a definite talent there.
Mhm. Well, I just like this whole idea, like they're going back to the barrel and like I'm just loving what he's creating, right? And
Mm,
just this whole, you can just see the tension, like what could potentially happen there. But yeah, what a like that's so innovative. I just absolutely love it. And thank you for reading that for us,
that's a
Esri.
pleasure. Mm,
Just before we wrap up, if there's something that in having such a dear friend that's going to stay with you, like what are one or two things that are really in ways that Rob inspired you that are going to stay with
mm.
you and guide you um,
Well,
as we move?
funnily enough, one of the things we talked about in the lead up to the, sadly cancelled science fiction master's degree was getting creative work done when you're doing a day job. So, you
Mm,
go to work and actually, you're working, if you're working in corporate comms, there are connections. You're using language, you are writing things, but creative writing can be very different. And sometimes he felt he would get home and really want to work on something in his creative writing. And, it was difficult just to get started.
yeah.
So we shared tips on that, and the one that he shared with me was it was free writing. So this is where you just, and he used to love doing it with a old fashioned pencil and a notepad before he went anywhere near a keyboard. And it was literally just sort of stream of consciousness, writing whatever comes into your head. No stopping, no editing, no worrying if it's even ever going to be part of anything you're working on. But it just, I guess, loosens up the creative muscle and gets you going.
Mhm.
Um, and the one I shared with him is interestingly sort of almost the opposite of that. And it's something that I learned from a writers group called 26 that I introduced Rob to as well, and he joined at one point. And we used to talk about creative constraints in 26 and how if you started a paragraph with a word beginning with A, try to finish that paragraph with a word ending in B
Oh,
so that your
wow.
paragraph goes from A to B. And then if
Yeah.
you do that, start your second paragraph with a word beginning with the letter C
Yeah.
and
Wow.
finish your second paragraph with a word ending in the letter D.
Yeah.
And then go through the whole alphabet like that till you
Mhm.
get to your final paragraph will end with the letter Z or Z, as you say in
Yeah.
North
Yeah. Well,
America.
we say
Um,
Zed too. In
you say
Canada,
that
we
as
say
well, yeah, yeah.
Zed.
But that's a very different approach. That's a much more disciplined approach, and I've done that exercise a few times. And I've always had to either get a dictionary or just glance at books around me to look for inspiration. Finding words that end in Z's not that easy.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
you know,
I know.
so
Yeah,
it's a
I
great
know.
exercise. So that was the contrast. I had something that was like bring it right down to a detailed and organized exercise like that. And Rob was like, just let it all hang out.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness, I just love that. I just love it. I love how just these interesting conversations that you'd have about the creative process.
Mm,
One of the biggest things for me was that because Rob was always seemed to be involved in everything and be so passionate about everything as well.
mm,
I just see that love of life, which so sadly dying at age 55 is just heartbreaking, but his love of life and his joie de vivre, carpe diem, like let's
yeah,
just he was just going to, he was at like if life was a buffet, he was going to be eaten at one of everything, right? And nothing,
yeah,
he seemed to be interested in everything. And I think that's so inspiring to me because he just brought such passion for everything to the table. And I'm just gonna when I remember him, one of the first times that we were getting to know each other, because I actually knew Rob, initially, I don't know if you remember, but we did an article and it was, oh my God, it might have been like 2005 or something, but you were quoted in it, I was quoted in it, so was Rob. And I forget, it
Okay.
was a communications article, and I could find it for you. I'm sure still have it. But so I met him at RBC. Like I knew his name, and then I found out he was coming to RBC. So I reached out to him, and
Hmm.
we invited some other people too, I think. And I'll never forget that, just meeting him for the first time, because again, you just see this larger than life. And he was just interested in everything and so excited about working at RBC. So again, my story was just like that first time that I met Rob. And then he would just come back to Toronto and we would just have fun. And then my husband Rob would come into it and he knew him so well. And he was so blown away and heartbroken as well, broken as well when Rob passed away. And just lastly, and it's something that it's really going to stay in my mind, is I love music, you love music. Um,
Hmm.
it's not something that Rob and I talked a lot about, but I would see it in his posts. He was always going to these amazing concerts, whether it was in when he lived in London and then when he and Leslie moved to Edinburgh. But one of his
Hmm.
dear friends did post something on Facebook, a tribute, and it was like there was a picture of Rob and he was like 35 or something, and they were at he might have been younger, I'm not sure, and they were at some concert, and it just like made me, I guess the thing is like what sits with me too is like what a how passionate he was about music, and that meant
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
to him. And I think that is just going to really stay with me. Maybe you think that once we, if we are like reunited, Rob and I will get to talk about music and say, "Hey, guy, why don't we never
Yeah.
talk about music?"
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
as I
I
mentioned,
just,
he quoted from a lyric by Aldous Harding at the beginning of The Barrel.
yeah,
And actually, she has a song called The Barrel
yeah,
on an album from, I think, 2017.
yeah,
I don't know if that was the inspiration, but it could well have been.
yeah. Just an incredible, incredible man, and we're so privileged to have known him, Ezri. So thank you so much. We really wanted to do this
Okay.
tribute for a dear friend. And thank you so much, Ezri. Thank you for reading the passage from Rob's amazing book. So next time
You're
we see
welcome.
all of you, we have some other topics that we want to share that are related to writing, but today we just wanted to share a tribute to our dear friend. Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
Alex.
Ezri.